Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Superman for all seasons. Last week, Lex Luthor was feeling rather irked that the Caped Boy Scout got him arrested, so he retaliated like anyone would, unleashing a virus that was seizing the entire city's respiratory systems. Supes needed his help to cure this thing, so was paired up with Jenny Vaughn, a woman he saved in Book 2 that Lex recruited, i.e. mentally conditioned, to be an even bigger Superman fangirl, I guess. They succeeded in literally raining the cure down in Metropolis, but sadly Vaughn ended up dying from the plague. This, coupled with Luthor's judgmental gaslighting, led Clark to return to the family farm to figure things out. Book 4's cover sees our hero looking like he's standing guard, almost like an apparition the way his cape fades to reveal the snowy Smallville street. Tonight, Superman will be playing both ghosts of Christmas past and present. And let's face it, Batman's the ghost of Christmas future. Each chapter had a credits page before the main story, with some creative summations about the plot. I didn't talk about them because they seemed a bit spoilery, if mildly so, but each one featured a picture of a season where Clark was by a tree, chilling with the family dog, as flowers were in bloom, or relaxing in the shade, when the leaves have fallen and it becomes more brisk, and now with snow covering the ground, and... where's the pooch? Shelby? Here, Shelby, come on, girl. If something happens to that dog, I'm blaming Lex Luthor and getting retribution. Don't question my process! We begin in Metropolis, and that kid from the end of Book 1, Trevor, playing on the ledge of his apartment building yet again, pretending he's a major league pitcher, and is that a bicycle? Are we supposed to believe this kid rides his bike on a ledge hundreds of feet above the ground? I don't know if he's too ignorant of his surroundings, or too hyperactive to care, or has some unresolved personal issues that lead him to subconsciously risk his life, but either way, get him some therapy! Or at least a better babysitter. Our narrator is now Lana Lang, reflecting on how she hoped and prayed she'd marry Clark Kent, have a bunch of kids, since they were both orphans and only children. That may have been why they got along so well, one thing above many they had in common. And then, all in one night, we were nothing alike. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
She never told anyone about the night of their high school graduation, when he took her into the field. She thought he was going to propose. But that's not what happened. He sat in a shopping cart and wanted me to push him into a herd of grazing steer for his jackass audition tape. One of the LexCorp Guardians shows up to tell the lad to stay inside for his own safety, while in the background, helicopters are putting up an assuring LexCorp billboard over the one that favored Superman. The Man of Steel hasn't been seen or heard of for a minute, and Lex feels everything is as it should be. I wonder if that includes having lost even more hair than earlier in the story. I mean, it really just fell out in between issues, didn't it? I didn't know supervillainy could wreak such havoc on the scalp. Anywho, Lana couldn't believe her childhood sweetheart was flying them around town, but when they landed, her dreams of being Mrs. Kent came crashing down. Her tray table was not up, nor her seat in the full, upright position. She wanted it to have been a dream, that she'd wake up and Clark didn't have powers that he would spend his life using for others. But that, of course, wasn't the case. Lois is at the Daily Planet, lamenting the lack of any front-page stories, in particular the lack of Superman, and how it's awful convenient that Kent took some personal days, as if he knew the slow news cycle ahead, or about where Supes would or wouldn't be. Or...
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
Yeah, she almost puts his identities together, but brushes it off as stupid, because it's funnier that way. Lana, meanwhile, eventually realized that Clark didn't intend on hurting or scaring or disappointing her. He just shared his greatest secret with his best friend. She's actually back in Smallville now. The two are taking a walk from the Kent farm into town, since she's had enough flying for one lifetime. I'm assuming referring to their graduation night. Sorry again, I couldn't get Southwest to redeem those air miles. He seemed not quite right to her, so she asks why he's back, since he can do anything. Clark isn't quite so sure of that anymore, and is trying to sort stuff out. They stop to make some snow angels before continuing on, and as Lana begins to note, his looks different. Yeah, it does look a lot like the X-Men's Blackbird. Also, the imprints don't quite match how they were placed in the first panel. Whoops. Lana narrates that she did what any broken-hearted teenager would do after that flight. She ran away from the only home she'd ever knew, but not telling Pete Ross to avoid explaining herself or telling him he couldn't come along. She'd known him as long as she had Clark. They spent most of their school time in the same classes. He knew her locker combo and her feelings about Kent. And she hoped he would forgive her for leaving and sending postcards with no return address. Kind of a long way to go to avoid paying someone back that $5 you owe them. They meet up with Pete and head into the general store. But unlike their teen years, he's put away the childish habit of rubbing the elephant's head for luck. The card game with the usual players is down one, Mr. Stone being hospitalized for a case of angina, and they ask Clark if he wants to join in, but he politely declines. Pete makes a crack that he should go ahead, and they'll see him again in a couple of decades, and Lana asks what his deal is. He says that both of them went out into the world, only to return to a place literally called Smallville, and don't seem to see how wrong that is. He stopped a good luck ritual because it was allegedly too juvenile for him, but he's maintained an immature sense of superiority based on his own regrets and lack of opportunity to leave a place he thinks he's too good for. Somehow the term lateral move feels like an understatement. Though raised by her Aunt Ruth, Lana knew she always had a place to stay at the Kents if she wanted, and thinks maybe she should have gone to them instead of leaving town. Martha isn't sure what exactly is depressing Clark either, but assures the young woman, as they finish prepping dinner, he'll speak up when he's ready. Clark starts carving the bird when there's a knock at the door. Chief Parker. The storm hitting town has led to a reservoir running over and a nearby river to spill out, raising the possibility of a flood. So townsfolk are headed to the church where the pastor is setting up cots. He heads out to warn more citizens, and Martha worries she and Jonathan may be too old to deal with another flood. Her hubby's not worried, figuring they can head out at daybreak if need be. They'll be all right. Clark passively agrees, cluing Lana in to how he was feeling, how the world was on his shoulders and he didn't feel he was up to carrying the load. She mentions the Mighty Rivers line, revealing she knows Clark's secret, surprising Ma and Pa. Kinda weird how he never happened to mention that he revealed his secret to someone else, let alone his best friend. Feels like his dutiful son impulses might have influenced him to bring it up to his parents before he left for Metropolis. Or maybe he thought this could be his little secret with Lana. Again, harking back to the first issue, Clark is lying awake in bed. Shelby at his side, telling his dad he thought he could do anything, but he can't. Because folksy wisdom is the best answer to having someone die in your arms, John says that when he had a good harvest his first year, he thought his every crop afterward would be top-notch too. But the following year proved him wrong. In time, he got better at farming, cleverly insinuating the same will be true of his son's superheroing. It's about knowing your limits and learning how to work with them. Meanwhile, Lana's prepping to crash on the couch, as Martha, happy that she's in on the secret, says the right woman can help the right man find the answers he's looking for. He causes the distraction, while she steals the answer sheet. Lana has doubts a girl from Smallville could help Superman, but Ma reminds her that, cape or no cape, he's still Clark. The next morning he's got his suit on, underneath a raincoat, loading supplies into the truck that his dad is confident will be fine driving in the continued downpour. Lana asks if he'll be alright, but he avoids the question by telling her to take care. She tells him to zip it and listen. She can't bend steel or outrun bullets, but she does know what it's like to see your hopes pulled away. All those celebrities I wanted to stalk keep dying. Being able to do things no one else can doesn't make it any less difficult to be the kind of person you want to be. And that noble, caring boy she's known her whole life, he's the one wearing that iconic costume. They kiss, and she tells Superman to go make things safe.
But only because I choose to.
The three non-hospitalized card players are in a boat floating down the street, with Tom Landers telling his buddies it's hopeless. That's when Superman flies above, and the town know-it-all is left speechless for once. I see hope. Note how despite the dark gray environments, Soup stands out as a bright icon. A nice departure from certain movies I could mention. As Clark plugs the dam with dead trees, hope he makes it up to those beavers, large stones, and a water tower? That's irony, right? Anyway, Jonathan thought they could take it easy through the covered bridge, but the water got too high, wrecked the bridge, and he was flung from the truck along with Shelby, leaving Martha and Lana stranded. Clark quickly frees them, sets them on solid ground, and tells them not to worry as he looks for his dad. It takes him a moment, but he sees him clutching a log, grabs him from the water, and returns to the truck. They are concerned he might have died, but Pa wakes up and asks to be set down. They huddle together, and Clark asks where Shelby is. "Clark, the dog, she's gone." "I said I was gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it! There's a balding CEO I gotta clobber." Fortunately, as her barking indicates, the pooch managed to get atop a large rock above water, right behind everyone, Soup's hopping over to reunite with his four-legged friend. Throughout this ordeal, Lana narrated how during her travels she heard people talk about Superman, puzzled that someone with such power at his disposal was using them for other people's benefit instead of his own. Why would he do this, they wondered, and Lana just smiled. No one would give a second thought to Chief Parker braving a storm just to warn people to get to safety, or a firefighter running into an inferno just to see if there was someone in need of rescue, when a pastor looks to counsel, when a parent hugs their child, or a nurse treats a wound. It's to both do good and inspire good in others. And it's no different with Superman. Lang realized to understand someone with powers beyond mortal man, she just needed to know Clark Kent. Rooting through his garbage for locks of his hair wasn't necessary, but she didn't want to take any chances. Later, they've joined others who have taken refuge at the church, as Pastor Lindquist says that despite some property damage and wrecked homes, no lives were lost, and they were lucky that Superman was around to lend aid. He reminds that hardships can bring reward, that we are defined by our actions in times of crisis. Considering how many crises DC has cooked up, that probably takes on a whole other meaning. And the passing of the seasons help us appreciate the future. Later at the Kent farm, Lana narrates her realization about just how much Smallville was inexorably part of her, making her more like the Man of Steel than she thought, knowing it'd be a while before they saw each other again as he flies back to Metropolis to continue his promise of helping as many people as he can. "Take care, Clark." "Oh yeah, sure. Shout my civilian name while I have the suit on. Great going, Lana. Hey, why don't you tell everyone my PIN number while you're at it?" No sooner had he returned to the big city than Kent made the front page with a story about Superman saving Smallville, much to Lois Lane's ire. She wants to know how he managed to get this scoop, and he just says he got lucky, with a look that makes you wonder if super smugness is one of his powers. Hey, remember Trevor, that kid who likes to play on ledges? Well, he's chased his cat to the very top of his building when one of the Guardians spooks him, causing him to, you guessed it, fall off. Good thing Big Blue catches him, though him saying safe like this would have made more sense when the kid was playing imaginary baseball. He then tells the discount Centurion to let his boss know he's back. Setting the kid back on the building, he recalls that they've met, and the boy introduces himself as Trev, and our hero responds that everyone calls him Superman, which he says after flying miles away. Really nice shot, but I don't think the kid heard you, Clark. The comic ends with Lana saying that she'll stay in Smallville with some new dreams, prayers, and hopes, and perhaps give Pete Ross a call. I guess one of her turn-ons is for a guy to be a passive-aggressive, envious dingus to his friends. Some guys have all the luck. That was Superman for all seasons, which absolutely deserves its status as a classic Superman story. It gives us events that help shape Clark into who he is at his core, when he's at his best. He's caring, compassionate, always looking out for others, all without any drastic changes to his origin or history at the time, with the possible exception of his relationship with Lana. In most continuities, they were dating in high school, but here they seem to be more like close friends, and his feelings largely appearing platonic. Sure, they kiss, but even that seems less than romantic. It's understandable that as a teenager he might be a bit trepidatious when his powers emerge and get stronger, because he doesn't know his limits, but he does see the potential to do a lot of good. The Spring book is where he's reborn, or born again you might say, which adds something to him consulting the pastor. When Lindquist advised there was nothing anyone could do about God setting a path for them, Clark wondered if maybe there was a way, which could be seen as fairly blasphemous, as if he's suggesting he could defy God.
Don't you blaspheme in here! Don't you blaspheme in here!
Maybe it's the start of him getting in over his head, like his pa would later suggest, but I never figured someone raised by the Kents to think he was more powerful than the Almighty. I think a better interpretation is that God's path for him was always to be as a protector, a super-powered servant, rather than a ruler. He just didn't realize it yet. But that's my amateur theological musings.
We're on a mission from God.
Sure enough, things go pretty well for him at first. He's doing good, saving people, with Chapter 2 largely about him beginning to win over a suspicious Lois Lane. One might say summer is when she warmed up to him. He openly says people should be more direct and defiant of Luthor, not because Superman thinks he's so much stronger and better, but his Kansas upbringing tells him Lex is not. He may be rich, influential, and contributed to the growth of Metropolis, but he shouldn't be given a free pass when he breaks the law or betrays the citizens' trust. The Book of Summer sees the heat begin to increase, be it from the threat of a nuclear missile, Lex trying to replace him with armored copycats, or the exploitation of a chemist. In between chapters, he gets Luthor arrested, for what it's never stated, but since at least chapters 2 through 4 all take place within the same year, it may have had something to do with that terrorist submarine. And it's Lexi's indignation at being treated like anyone else, defied by someone he can't just fire or have disappeared, that has him use his resources, his cunning, and his loyal employees to manipulate a woman who's devoted to the superhero and develop a virus only she can cure, at the cost of her own life. Not unlike in the first Superman film by the late Richard Donner, Jenny Vaughn's death was something that no amount of incredible strength or heat vision could have prevented. But since the sickness seemed to pass through the air, I'm not sure how she got overexposed. It's never really mentioned if her breather malfunctioned, or if the concentration had reached a point where it was essentially useless, or if Lex did something else before they left. One could argue that due to the high saturation in the air, the infection was absorbed through her skin, which may be why she was given that costume. Not the most revealing we've seen on this show, but certainly questionable in its practicality. That said, maybe it's linked to that footage she was forced to watch. Lex taking her adoration of Supes to its maximum, so she would want a costume, a cape, a new name, just like he has, to be more like him. Though again, the choice of toxin should have raised more eyebrows. But back to Clark. It's like he was king of the mountain, but was shoved off due to what he sees as his own negligence. We saw him fall in the book of, well, you know. If he can't do anything, can he be as helpful as he wants to be? He's a very empathetic person. He doesn't like people suffering or being hurt, especially if he can do something about it. He's very much happy to help, because he feels it's what he should do, as Lana would narrate. Wise words from his friend and family motivate Cal to do what he can to prevent the town from suffering further from the flood, and save his dad. As Pastor Lindquist said, a tree may be bare when the temperatures drop and the snow falls, but it returns to bloom much stronger after and during the winter. So this was kind of like Clark's winter of discontent, wherein, if nothing else, he had to learn to cope with loss in spite of his amazing abilities. No longer dragged down by a tragedy that wasn't even his fault, Supes closes the final book by returning to Metropolis a bit wiser and even more defiant of Luthor. Speaking of, this story does some nice work with the rich guy's character, too. It wouldn't be a stretch to suggest that the cruelty Lex experienced from his own father left the desire to inflict that same cruelty onto others, that he never wanted to feel helpless or vulnerable again, and he deserves to do what he wants because of how he transformed the city. His wealth can fund any project, pay off any opposition, until the red cape started zipping around. While Supes is focused on keeping a train from running amok, Lex is presuming that a lack of attention and praise is going to eat away at him, that Supes will question himself because no one is fawning over him and cheering his name, even though that's not why Clark does what he does. It's like trolls who like to argue with others online, but don't bother to research or verify their info, then deflect by accusing others of bully tactics that the trolls themselves employ on the regular. I'd wager Lex believes that because it's what he would want. If he had these kinds of abilities, he'd definitely abuse them, but also do some heroics if only to gain the loyalty of the populace, so he could further control them. Look no further than his Guardians for proof of that. He wants his name chanted, he wants to be the pride and joy of the city, his way, on his terms. Then along comes this selfless, wholesome, kind soul throwing nukes into space and deadlifting subs with one hand. No commands, no trying to dominate or control, no asking for anything in return. It spits in the face of everything Luthor actually stands for. And to top it all off, The superhero threatened to hold him accountable for maybe supplying tech to terrorists, and dared to actually get him arrested.
What? Oh, yes. All that stuff I did.
This puckish, spiteful business mogul is constantly reminded of his frailty, his limitations, from hair loss to a shaving cut, and he's trying to tussle with a guy that shrugs off bullets and bombs. His ego can't fathom the idea that he should, to any degree, be treated like everyone else, because he needs to make himself superior to others, even if he's not. If he wants to create and spread a virus, he'll do it. Fill people's heads with lies so they'll deny the facts, he'll do it. If he wants to sacrifice a brilliant woman into doing his bidding just to hurt someone who's physically invulnerable, he'll do it. He actually thought that walking up the stairs of an apartment building with no elevator was some kind of huge favor he was doing for the city, and yet some people would believe he's a regular guy if he lied to them enough. The visuals are wonderful, influenced by artist Norman Rockwell, which makes sense, since his work is often synonymous with classic America, nostalgic moments of down-home family or neighborly interactions, and Superman is a quintessentially American icon. Many pages seem to be direct homages, and some maybe, but I'm not familiar enough with Rockwell's work to be certain. There's a brushstroke aesthetic which largely works, though there were times it felt off, like Lana looking a tad sickly, and Lex... well, I already mentioned how he looked here. "You're as trusting as a cobra, you're as snuggly as a shark, Mr. Lex. If I were a domesticated animal and you entered my home, my response would be as followed: hiss, snarl, bark." Even so, there's a lot of great care taken into the detail of the buildings or common items you'd see in a small town shop or a family porch, like a pet dish with Shelby's name on it, and a different dish labeled Rusty. Is that a reference to one of the creator's pets? Or did the Kents have another pet we never saw, they never talked about, and reused the bowl? Anyway, it does a great job with Clark's emotional expressions, from the pure joy of making a snow angel or his heartbreak at the loss of human life. They kind of reused the scene of him lying in bed, which I believe is symbolic of his journey. He's uncertain when he hears his folks talking about how powerful he's becoming. Then, when he's in his own place in the big city, he's a little more confident, making it work. And then, when he loses faith in himself, he's in his old room, as if he's regressed, back to square one. There were a bunch of 2-page spreads, which I sometimes view as filling space to extend a much shorter story, but that's not the case here. Sure, maybe a couple could have been 1 page, or a large establishing panel, but most of them, I think, were meant to convey the atmosphere of a scene, the enormity of a storm, the artistry of a sunset, or Superman's joy that the Earth is safe. There are other details that may be more subtle if they mean anything, like Clark's glasses reflecting the night sky in Chapter 2, the same as his dad's did in Chapter 1. Perhaps to show how much like Jonathan he is, despite no blood relation. Clark also seems like a mountain compared to others, even in his teen years, and perhaps that's so he stands out, contributing to his feelings of otherness, not because he's a character in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Also, there was this one panel that was surprisingly sultry for Miss Lane, making her look like a fusion of Jessica Rabbit and Morticia Addams. I'm not complaining or anything, just something atypical I noticed. Honestly, I can't say I have much of a problem with anything in this story, with a bit of an exception. I enjoy callbacks to some classic predecessor as much as the next guy, but I think they repeated the "change the course of mighty rivers" line a bit too much. Even if, for example, one of the creators just really liked that portion, it just doesn't feel natural when people say it as often as they do in story. It just doesn't feel like it would be that frequent or casual. If the creators just really wanted to reference that classic tagline, that's cool. But I think maybe if books 1 through 3 each used one of the descriptors, bending steel, speeding bullets, and so on, then maybe repeating them all together in Part 4, it could have been a more fun build-up. But maybe that's just me. There are some things that get underexplained or not explained where I would normally like some clarification, but some of it was to let the reader come to their own conclusions and doesn't really hurt the overall story or its themes. And I really enjoy this scene of Lois knocking the snot out of a terrorist. The story terrifically exemplifies how human the last son of Krypton is, how his humble upbringing, kind nature, and intangible vulnerabilities help shape him into the greatest superhero on the planet. I highly recommend it to fans of the character and to those who want a good example of Supes done right. If the upcoming Superman movie has taken the right lessons from this, and depending on when I can actually go see it, I think we'll be all the better for it. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.